Hello everyone, I'm Carly, and I'd feel the pink.
And I'm Sam, middle name Nicolette.
And welcome to Read Receipts with Carly and Sam, our book-based podcast covering all the latest hits and some stories off the beaten path.
With a few fun and exclusive episodes mixed in between.
And today marks the beginning of Summer of Love. Ooh! We have a whole romance-themed summer of content planned for both the book club and off-the-shelf episodes, and we are kicking things off today with Emily Henry's newest release, Great Big Beautiful Life.
We're here to dive into the full story, no lies, cough cough, Margaret.
Yeah.
Cough cough. So just keep in mind that because it is going to be the full story, there will be spoilers ahead. You've been warned.
Now, in case you haven't read this book yet, or if you want a quick plot refresher, let's go ahead and read the back of the book summary before we get into how we felt about the book. Alice Scott is an eternal optimist still dreaming of her big writing break. Hayden Anderson is a Pulitzer Prize-winning human thundercloud. And they're both on balmy Little Crescent Island for the same reason, to write the biography of a woman no one has seen in years. Or at least to meet with the octogenarian who claims to be the Margaret Ives, tragic heiress, former tabloid princess, and daughter of one of the most storied and scandalous families of the 20th century. When Margaret invites them both for a 1-month trial period, after which she'll choose the person who will tell her story, there are 3 things keeping Alice's head in the game. 1, Alice genuinely likes people, which means people usually like Alice, and she has a whole month to win the legendary woman over. 2, she's ready for this job and the chance to impress her perennially unimpressed family with a serious publication. 3, Hayden Anderson, who should have no reason to be concerned about losing this book, is glowering at her in a shaken-to-the-core way that suggests he sees her as competition. But the problem is, Margaret is only giving each of them pieces of her story, pieces they can't swap to put together because of their ironclad NDA, and an inconvenient yearning pulsing between them every time they're in the same room. And it's becoming abundantly clear that their story, just like the tale Margaret's spinning, could be a mystery, a tragedy, or a love ballad, depending on who's telling it.
Ooh, so definitely a couple lies being thrown around here and there, twists, tales.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot more than a romance.
Mm-hmm. Before we dive into kind of what we thought about the book, I think we should also kind of go through our list of characters. So obviously through the back of the book summary, you know that we have Alice and Hayden, our writers at play here, and our romantic love interests. Mm-hmm. We also have Margaret, the famous Margaret Ives herself. Mm-hmm. We've got Alice's mom, who plays a decently big role, at least in the way Alice handles herself, like as a person and throughout the book. We have Jody, Cecil, and Cosmo, who play pretty big roles in Margaret's life. And then, of course, we also touch on other characters in Margaret's life, like her sister Laura. We've got her parents, Freddie and Bernie, and then a couple other people as well that we'll probably touch on here and there. So a good cast of characters, more than what I think you would typically expect in a romance where you kind of just have the 2 main leads. So it's exciting that we kind of get to touch on like a broader group of characters.
Yeah. Like I said earlier, it really felt like a lot more than a romance. So it's kind of exciting that there's so much plot happening alongside this romance.
Definitely. Yeah. So now that we've kind of talked about the summary, the characters, Carly, what did you think about the book?
So I ended up rating it 4.75.
Ooh,
so
okay.
Very high up.
Yeah.
To be honest, the main reason why I knocked it down from a 5-star was mostly because I didn't like the way Hayden acted in the beginning. I felt like he was really unnecessarily rude, personally.
Yeah.
Like, of course, now we technically know why he was kind of acting that way and stuff, or the motivations behind it, but it still was just like, dude, just tell her, have a nice night, or whatever it was that, like, instead he was like, enjoy your stay. Oh, it was nice meeting you. That's what it was. And it's like, come on. So that was like the main reason that I knocked it down. But overall, I really enjoyed it. I do kind of understand that I think some people, it seems like most people like this book, but also have run into the fact that it is a lot more than a romance, like we said. I personally really loved it. I kind of like when there's a lot of plot happening in a book, including romances. So I was fine with it, but I do understand how people could walk into this book feeling like they got a lot more than they bargained for.
Yeah.
So I can also kind of group that into that slightly less than a 5-star rating.
Yeah.
But overall, really enjoyed it. Had a great time.
Yeah.
What did you think?
Touching on the romance aspect of it, I think there were definitely a lot of reviews. You know, after I read the book, I kind of looked at other people's reviews, and a lot of reviews had said things about this not really being a romance. And of course, it was kind of branded as a romance, and Emily Henry herself does a lot of romance books. So that was a big disappointment for a lot of people. I kind of agree with you that for me, it didn't really change how I felt about the book, but I could see where if you're expecting a romance book and then you kind of pick this up and read it, not that it's a bad book, but the fact that the romance is very understated, I mean, it pretty much is just a subplot to what's really happening in the book. And I could see how that would be disappointing if you're expecting a romance or like a typical Emily Henry book. Mm-hmm. So for me, that was one of the things that I kind of knocked it down for, I guess, kind of like what you were saying, from a 5-star to a 4.75. I rated it a 4-star. So I really liked the book. Honestly, I loved it. I've only read, I think maybe like 3 Emily Henry books, but of the 3, I mean, this one it's pretty close to the top, if not my favorite. I mean, it's definitely one of my favorites of the 3. Yeah. I really liked it. But again, the whole like romance aspect of it didn't really affect me that much. So that's part of a big reason why I didn't, care too much about that aspect, and why I still really liked the book overall. Now, I did only rate it a 4-star. And the reason why wasn't because of the romance aspect, but it was actually because of the twists. So I felt like there were a lot more twists than I thought we were going to have in a book like this, that like was a little bit romance, was a little bit literary. And so for me, especially at the end when all of the big twists were coming out, which of course we'll get to here in a little bit, it felt very back to back, very like rushed, very stacked. So I kind of felt like it took away from Margaret's story to have this be sort of a cheap mystery where she's like revealing all of these twists, which I guess I understand she's been doing that this whole time with her half-truths and omission to both Hayden and Alice. But I didn't love that aspect. And for that reason, I gave it 4 stars.
Right. I definitely can see that as well, that she tried to sprinkle it, I think, a little bit, but, we only had so many pages at the end.
Right.
And you can kind of see the writing on the wall that clearly there's a lot more coming, even when we get to slight spoiler for what we're about to get into.
Yes.
Like the Jody Cecil kind of reveal. Like, yes, we sort of found that out early, but it doesn't take much longer after that we then find out that Hayden is her grandson.
Right.
So it does feel really close together, not a whole lot of processing time. So I get that too.
Yeah.
But, we both love mysteries, so it's kind of fun to get an extra genre in the mix because of that.
Yes, agreed.
So I really enjoyed it. At first, honestly, I was a little bit more into the Margaret of it all when reading the book, and I was a little, because of how I felt about Hayden in the beginning, I was like, screw this guy. I don't think I'm gonna like this romance. Yes. Yeah. But then it definitely switched.
Oh, sure.
And I was like, sign me up. Margaret, get out of here. Get these 2 people to bone. So
I need Hayden and Alice to bone, please.
I definitely still think that...
Or like fall in love or whatever.
In my opinion, I still felt like, even though the romance was kind of understated in the sense that it wasn't the spotlight, I still really liked it.
Yeah,
but
that's fair.
Yeah, I think it was a really good book overall. So since there was so much that happened in this book, let's kind of work our way backwards because of all the twists that showed up. The first one that comes to mind for me is that there was never a story.
Yeah.
This was all a big ploy, and Alice was just a part of that ploy.
Yeah.
So how did you feel about that reveal?
I feel like if I were Alice, I mean, honestly, I would just be shocked that I thought I was coming here for my dream job, and then the whole time, Margaret never even considered this a possibility. And I know towards the end, she had said and admitted, Alice, you changed my mind. I do think we can do this. But I think I would just feel used. You know?
Yes.
Because really, Margaret was just using Alice so that she could meet Hayden, so that she could get Hayden to the island and kind of get to know him. I get where Alice was coming from with the tension between her and Margaret when this reveal came about.
Yeah, I really loved Alice as a character in general, so I was very much on her side kind of throughout the book. On top of that, you know how Margaret was such a big character in her life growing up between her and her dad kind of being the parent figure that she was a lot more connected to. So kind of adding that to the devastation of realizing this was all fake. Also on top of that, the fact that she has kind of hoped for a writing opportunity like this to impress her family, all these sorts of things.
Yeah.
This was such a big moment for her. This felt like the turning point in her life. Not only do you feel like you're being used, but think of all of what this book meant for her life coming crashing down. I know that technically this was always a possibility that she might not have gotten to write the book because Hayden was always in contention as well.
But at least there was an opportunity versus finding out that this was never something Margaret even considered in the beginning, at least.
Yes,
You know?
it really changes the perception of that.
And then obviously, after like everything she knows about Margaret's perspective of not telling Hayden the truth and how Alice herself doesn't agree with that, then having the strength to be like, well, I don't agree with that, so we can't do this. You know, even after Margaret offers and says, listen, this wasn't a possibility in the beginning. Like, I never wanted this in the beginning, but you've changed my mind. Let's do it. And then for Alice to say, well, that doesn't really align with my values, the way you're handling this whole situation, so it's going to be a no for me. It feels like kind of a double heartbreak for Alice there, you know?
Yeah. What do you think, if you were in that same situation, would you have gone ahead and taken the deal, even though I don't think that I could have, assuming that you are going to continue a relationship with Hayden.
Yes.
And you have this NDA, you're not supposed to say anything about him. And especially you kind of know the fact that his mom basically has anxiety. I know that it's a little bit more emphasized that it's this health anxiety, but it sounds like she's generally anxious. And it seems like she probably would like to know that piece of her history because she's adopted, because Margaret is her mom. So that is just so much weighing on your shoulders that you're just not supposed to say anything about.
Yeah.
I think it's not even just the standpoint of morally this is not right. It's like, how am I going to power through that?
I mean, I just don't think you really can, because even Alice in the book touches on it, where she says something along the lines of, I don't think I can continue a relationship with Hayden like this, lying to him. And then what if one day he finds out? And then to know that I hid this from him for however long we're together, if we're together for years, you know? Because then also on Hayden's perspective, if my partner had been lying about something so big like that, like knowing that I'm related to Margaret, like knowing, you know, a part of my history and my heritage, that would be, I mean, it would be hard to, I don't know, get over if I found that out years later. Like, I could see where Alice is coming from and thinking that Hayden would resent her for that.
Yeah.
You know?
Although I will say, I remember eventually coming around to understanding why this happened, but following that conversation, then Alice goes in, sees Hayden, they kind of have a fight, and they basically end up breaking up. And it's like, wait, why do we have to do that? Why? I'm sorry, if you're not going to write for Margaret, why do we have to end the relationship?
Well, but then also she already knows the information.
I guess.
So it's like,
I guess that's why.
And that's a triple loss for Alice, right? Like, we talked about the loss of the job.
You either get it all or you get nothing.
Or you get nothing. She gets nothing because she can't even be with Hayden even after giving up the job. Yeah, because she knows all of it and she can't keep it a secret from him, which, I mean, you know, good for her for like knowing that that's not right and knowing that she personally can't do that and like keep that secret from him. But oh my gosh. I will say though, on the flip side of it, I kind of do understand where Margaret is coming from. Not in the sense of I think what she did was right, but in the sense of her coming from a place of pessimism due to how she was brought up, you know, because she was raised in the spotlight and she saw all of the horrible things that it did to her family, the Ives curse, if you will, you know, like all of the things that it did to her parents' marriage, to her sister, which again, we'll touch on all of that in a little bit, but most recently to her husband, like losing her husband and the love of her life, and then, you know, having to give birth to this baby and be so alone, like feel so alone. I can imagine where, after living a life like that, you would think, I am doing the right thing. I am sparing Hayden and Nicolette and that whole family from this whole quote unquote Ives curse. Like, I'm doing the right thing. Even if they found out, they would not want anything to do with me because of this whole situation. So I understand where that thought process might come from. Obviously, I still don't think it's right because, like Alice says to Margaret, you know, you're taking away his choice. Like, he should have a choice to decide whether or not he wants to get to know you, and his mother should have that choice as well. So I do think it wasn't, again, the right thing for Margaret to do, but I do understand where she was coming from.
Yeah, and she really went through sort of the most dramatic possibilities that a person could go through as someone that's a celebrity and in the spotlight. Her parents kind of got divorced as a result of the growing fame and rises in their career. She literally loses the love of her life to the paparazzi. I mean, I feel like especially after that, how do you cope with that and knowing that this is the worst possible thing that could happen?
Yeah.
Literally losing that person. So I do feel like that does make a lot of sense in her story.
Immediately after, also, after finding out that she's pregnant, like, she and Cosmo had talked about wanting a baby, also like the ups and downs of having a baby, but then like finding out she's pregnant, that's got to be a ton of emotions. And then like a week after losing him, like, I can't imagine.
Whenever she first kind of talks about, I can't remember now exactly because of the whole, like, she was trying to cover up the lies and stuff.
Sure.
But she kind of brings up the whole idea of possibly having a baby and how it really changed. She had this whole, everything turned blue whenever her parents separated. And then this was like the first time in a while that things felt bright and had those more warm colored hues to life, was thinking about this baby. And it wasn't just about the baby. It was raising that baby with Cosmo.
Yes.
Like, it was specifically that life
Like,
that she wanted together.
a baby with him.
Yes, that kind of is what brought in a portion of that hope.
Yeah.
So without him there, of course, you're going to feel completely different about it.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, too, the media was, I know that she was kind of purposefully doing stuff to get the media's attention, to have some sort of control over her narrative. But like she said, those words kind of eventually fed into her self-esteem. And that is something I really can't imagine, even if you are someone who's kind of grown up in the spotlight and this is kind of what you're used to.
I mean, people comment on our stuff all the time, and it's like,
All the time.
we're so famous, this podcast, you know, we can kind of, we get it, Margaret.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. Some people do comment and say, you guys are really hot and funny. And
Exactly, and that's just like a lot of pressure.
yeah, it's hard
You know,
to always
when they're
be
like,
hot
you
and
guys
funny.
you guys are amazing. Like,
Yeah, I love this
can
podcast.
we know you?
I
Can we
love
be your
you all.
friend?
Yeah.
Can we date you?
Yeah.
Can we bone you?
I see you don't. I see you don't have a ring on your fingers. Is this a possibility? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I get it.
Yeah.
The pressure's hard, Margaret.
Pressure's hard.
Yeah. I guess we could go ahead and also get into a little bit more of the specifics about how we felt about the Hayden is her grandson Nicolette reveal.
Yeah.
It was so funny whenever Hayden revealed that his mom's name was Nicolette, and Alice was freaking out about it, and I was like, wait, what does that mean? Like, I understand Nicolette is obviously important, but what could this mean? It still was going completely over my head that, like, the pieces were kind of making sense that Margaret could have had a child.
Sure.
So I was just like, okay, I thought maybe Margaret found him because there was a Nicolette in the family, and it's just like, oh, that name means something to me.
Oh.
Something like that.
Okay, yeah.
But no, it makes a lot more sense
Yeah.
now that it's a very literal connection.
Yeah. I had a feeling that there was some sort of connection. I didn't know in the very beginning when Alice was pointing out, oh, your mom's name is Nicolette. They're spelled the same. Like, all, you know, I didn't know that it was going to be this is Margaret's daughter, Hayden is Margaret's grandson sort of situation until towards the end of their conversation. I think I was having the same sort of reaction as Alice, where as things were unfolding, I was like, is there a possibility?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what's happening.
It
Like, what's going on?
A lot of sense now, especially with, like, from the very beginning, she's been hiding the name Nicolette.
Yes.
And all that sort of stuff.
And getting very, like, emotional whenever she had to bring up the name Nicolette.
Yes, she always seemed very peeved, like,
She
why are you making me
always
say it?
seemed- Yeah, she always seemed very emotional, which when she explained what that meant, I was like, oh, maybe it's just because it has such a significant meaning in their family. But now knowing that she had named her daughter that too, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
it's all like
the pieces are coming,
it's coming together. Yeah, for sure.
It's really funny though, because I know kind of around halfway we had talked a little bit about the book. I definitely felt like there was something to the Margaret being here with Hayden and Alice. I thought though that maybe it would be more on the Alice side of things. I'm like, maybe she knew her
She
dad.
knows Alice. Yeah, very Evelyn Hugo of you.
Yes, I'm like, there's got to be more. Yes, exactly. You killed her dad. But yeah, honestly, that would have been crazy. Because I know some people online have been like, this book is too much like Evelyn Hugo.
Yes.
And it's like, I mean, yes, it's about a celebrity, but that's really kind of the end of the train there.
I mean, I guess the connections.
There being a connection.
There are a lot of connections going on.
Yeah. But no one's gay. So, and that's the most important part to me about Evelyn Hugo.
That's your big takeaway.
That's my big takeaway. Evelyn Hugo is a lesbian, and need I say more? Happy Pride Month. Oh wait, it's over. No wait, it would still be going on when this comes out.
Maybe.
Right? Wait. Or is it July? Is it July 1st that this comes out?
I think it might be July 1st, actually.
Happy late Pride Month.
It was definitely a twist for sure, finding out that Hayden was her grandson and that Nicolette was her daughter and that whole connection. And I will say that I don't know if I loved it because it was like this final twist after a series of all of these other twists that we had come across, which again, we'll get to. But because the twists were so stacked, I was like, what is happening? Is she just making stuff up now?
Yeah, I definitely was still reeling over the whole Cecil, Jody, Laura triangle of things.
Yeah.
So it did feel like a lot in one moment.
It felt a little, I don't know, brushed, not under the rug, but because there was that twist with Cecil, Jody, Laura, it felt like that was the focus. And then either this twist was taking away from that or that twist was taking away from this. It just felt like I couldn't quite appreciate this big twist at the end because by this point I was like, what is even real anymore? You know?
Honestly, that plays a huge role in it too because, you know, and that's another thing. I really would have loved to have known what Hayden and Margaret were talking about in all of their interviews.
Sure.
It sounds like it wasn't a whole lot of anything.
Yeah.
But knowing that she was probably telling him even more lies, I'm just kind of intrigued. I really wish we could have done a little bit more cross-examination between the two stories that they were getting.
Maybe a little Hayden point of view.
Yeah, yes. Someone release a POV of what Hayden and Margaret talked about.
Emily Henry, if you want to do like a side project.
Yes,
Hayden's perspective.
Yeah, I would love that.
Also Hayden's perspective of the romance too, which again, I'm like jumping all over the place because we'll get to that.
Yeah.
But Hayden's perspective of the romance, I would love to like see how he like felt about her from his perspective.
Oh my god.
I'm just saying Emily Henry, I think there's an audience for it.
Yeah, I agree. I do think it was really fun that basically there were so many Easter eggs that led up to the reveal that Margaret had a daughter. Mm-hmm. The way that, obviously we talked about the name part of it, but also the sort of reveal about Ruth as well and how she was like, well, obviously we couldn't have her go away for just 9 months. Sure. It had to be a little longer so that way people don't suspect that it's because of a pregnancy.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of funny that there's so many of these little pieces here and there to put together the final mystery that, oh, Margaret didn't just send people away and hung out at her house for 2 years straight. Yeah. Obviously that was for a reason.
Right.
Not me though. I was like, weird.
Yeah. I mean, it was definitely a good way to, like you said, put Easter eggs in earlier in the book so that the twist would make sense, which it did, but we had already done that. So from my perspective, it was kind of like, is this real? Yeah. Get where Emily Henry is coming from to make it believable, like to have put those Easter eggs in the beginning to make it believable in the end. But I don't know. I don't know. It was still a good book, but not my favorite part.
Yeah, I understand. So I know we've already talked a little bit about Cecil, but just to talk about that whole Cecil-Jody situation more, I really, when Cecil and Jody were introduced to the story, I was just like, these are fun side characters. This is funny that like,
you were like,
Jody?
It won't be important.
Yeah, I'm like, this old guy is, you know, harassing Alice, classic little town sort of thing. Nope, they matter.
I also didn't think Cecil would matter because when she meets Cecil, Yeah, when she meets Cecil, he just owns the bar, restaurant, and she also meets, I think she sees him with a friend, and she also meets the waitress. So I just felt like, oh, she's just meeting these people. Like, she'll see all of them from time to time, but they're not going to be super important. They're going to be side characters.
Yes.
Jody, I did think maybe would be a little bit more important, but I also thought that it was because, you know, you see Jody in her house, you see Jody like doing stuff for her, and Alice makes a note of it in the beginning of the book when she says, I wonder who Jody is. Is she a friend,
Yes.
an employer, a lover, a family member? Like, you know, there's so many options.
Yeah, exactly. I kind of thought it was that sort of thing where because it was specifically mentioned in the book, it's like, well, we're confronting it head on, so it must not
Sure.
have much else behind it. Honestly, very good on Emily to do that, to
Yeah.
really sway any suspicion
Sure,
on that
yeah.
front. Because I did, basically, I'm sure this is when everyone else caught on, whenever Margaret's sort of retelling the story and she talks about how this woman showed up at her house and she had an accent, I'm like, that's Jody. Because it's not touched on a whole lot, but early on they mentioned that Jody has kind of like maybe a German accent, something kind of European.
Oh, wait, yes, you're right. I think I do remember that now that you're saying it.
I did catch on to that. I was like, Jody? Jody's showing up? What? So,
Wow, that part I didn't even remember until you said it. But yeah, wow. Okay.
And on top of that, that makes me wonder, towards the end of the interviews, Jody was gone a lot.
Yeah.
And Margaret was like, oh, she's just, you know, on a well-deserved vacation. And
Yeah.
makes you wonder, was she actually leaving because she was mad at Margaret being like, you need to tell Hayden, basically.
Sure. Or did she hang out with Cecil, her
Yeah.
father?
Yes.
Like, we never see them interact.
Honestly, there's
So it's also...
again so many layers to this. Yes, also that. And did Cecil know that Alice and Hayden were there to see Margaret?
yeah.
Because he ran into them a lot. At first, it kind of just seems
He
like
did.
it's Alice because Alice is friendly and all that.
Yeah.
But clearly, he knew who Hayden was too.
Right.
So
And I feel like Margaret probably would have said something to Cecil. You know, if you're gonna say something to anyone, like Jody lives with you, so she's like there, but you'd probably say something to Cecil too.
And even if she doesn't say anything to Cecil, Jody's gonna say something.
Right.
She clearly has a very opinionated stance on this whole Hayden situation.
Right, exactly. And there are no hints or clues that she's like estranged from him in any way. So
Yeah.
surely
Yeah. So I
they
think.
talk.
Yeah.
Even though we never see it, which is also kind of strange. That we
Yeah,
never
it is
see
kind of
that.
strange to like put together that these people are literally father and daughter.
Father and daughter, yeah.
I had to think through like, wait, is this a secret child? I don't remember.
It is kind
So
of
many
hard
secret children.
There are so many secret children, and when we get into the like family tree, the whole Ives family tree, I at a point was like, should I be writing this down? Like, I don't.
Yeah, because it gets confusing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of them all in one house. I really enjoyed that twist. Again, I kind of wish that it didn't get overshadowed by the bigger twist because I thought that alone was pretty crazy.
All right, Cosmo.
So Cosmo.
How did we feel about Cosmo's death?
I know that early on, Alice introduces some of these big topics of what happened in Margaret's life, and they mention the cult, they mention the paparazzi death. I think they said something along those lines. But you forget when you get there what exactly is about to happen, and it's like,
Yes.
oh no.
And it felt very Princess Diana to me. So I was like I was preparing myself for it, you know? And I was like, oh, so sad. And it obviously, real life events, like it was very sad when it happened to Princess Diana. It was very sad when it happened to Cosmo. The tragedy of losing the love of your life is already sad enough, but the fact that you lose him to your status as being a celebrity. And so the fact that I'm sure she probably feels a lot of blame, that's probably not a part of her life she ever really wants to revisit in the telling of, because it's her losing the love of her life, but also probably because she feels a little bit of guilt from that with the whole Ives curse thing. Just very sad.
Yeah, not to mention it was technically because she was the one in pain, and knowing now that she was pregnant and probably not a big deal, probably didn't have to go to the hospital for it, or they could have waited for a doctor to come by.
Yeah.
Something along those lines. Like there's so many regrets around it. And it's really sad to think that they really only had like, I think she said 4 years.
4 years.
Very, very
together.
short amount of time. That is
Yeah.
crazy. Especially the way that they talked about this, you know, Alice, Hayden, those sort of people talked about this love, it seemed like it was a huge deal. It was a big publicized thing, but to know it only lasted that long is so crazy.
Also, they were really young. When they introduce themselves to each other, Margaret is 20.
Yeah.
She's 24 when her husband dies. She's so young.
She's so young. It's really crazy to think that so much of the story happens before
that. Yeah.
Cosmo seemed really sweet. I loved how supportive he was throughout everything with Laura, even from the get-go, with their grandfather dying and then everything that Laura went through. He was 100% there and willing to do whatever it took. It is really such a shame.
R.I.P. Cosmo.
R.I.P. Cosmo.
Speaking of Laura, though, how did we feel about her as a character?
Man, I feel bad about Laura because I've actually talked a lot about wanting to start a cult. And granted, it's a very different kind of cult. It's more so just a friend group.
You're all members of our cult if you've subscribed.
Yes.
Welcome in.
Welcome in. We're going to get a compound together. But I felt really bad for Laura because I just felt like I could really understand her perspective. I don't know. I could just really see how it's easy to fall into the trap that she did with this doctor that you start talking to and starts really validating your feelings and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. And she wasn't in a good place mentally either. You know, she was very close to her grandfather. I mean, that was her best friend, you know? So being in such a vulnerable position where she feels like she can't really rely on other people. Like, yes, she has her parents. Yes, she has Margaret. But her grandfather was who she related to the most. So losing that figure in her life, she's very vulnerable. So then, you know, it's very easy to be taken advantage of when you're in that position.
Yeah, exactly. I was really worried for her. I'm glad that they did end up getting her out of the cult.
Yeah.
I was kind of worried about exactly how that was going to happen.
Yeah.
But I really loved their relationship.
A very good, like, sisterly relationship. You can tell that they're very close.
Yes, and they would do anything for each other.
Would do anything for each other. When they're at the diner and Margaret sees Laura come in and she's like, I barely recognized her. And then when Laura is, you know, sitting across from her and she's like, I can't tell you anything, like, he won't let me leave, he won't let me go. And Margaret is very, like, adamant of, like, you think that he has more of an ability to hurt you than I can protect you. Like, there's nothing that I wouldn't do for you.
Yeah.
Like, tell me what you need and I'll get it done.
Yeah, especially, honestly, they have, like, the most powerful family in America, it seems like.
But it was very clearly also, like, the way Margaret was saying that, she was like, you think I can't protect you? Like, I will do anything.
Yeah. Yeah, it was so sweet.
It was, yeah.
And it makes it even worse when the Cosmo stuff happens and Laura doesn't come back. It doesn't seem like she really reaches out initially at all in any way.
I think she maybe sends a letter to, like, after.
Yeah, like,
not, like, very soon after, but just after.
Like, not even at least something in the immediate to be like, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be coming, but I wish I could be there for you. I'm just going through a lot. I feel so bad because I understand why Laura probably feels like she can't come back, between the fact that he literally died via being chased by paparazzi.
Yeah.
And everything that she's still recovering from. I understand why she wouldn't come back, but also at the same time, of course Margaret needs her.
Yeah.
This is the worst possible thing that could happen to her. Mm-hmm. It's just really unfortunate circumstances because I don't feel like I blame either of them for what happened. It's just kind of bad timing, I guess. Mm-hmm. And I don't blame Margaret for how she feels about it. I am happy though, because honestly, the way that it sounded, it seemed like they did not reconcile at any point before Laura died. But luckily they did reveal that that's why Margaret's even on this island, basically. Which
is nice that they at least got, I mean, I don't think it was very long because I think Laura was already sick at that point. But it is nice that at the very least they did get that closure, I guess, in their relationship, and that Margaret was able to see her sister before she passed. Because they did make it seem like at first when Margaret's talking about her, it's very past tense, which, I mean, makes sense. You talk past tense about the people that are no longer with you. But it just felt very sad. So it was like, oh, she didn't get to say goodbye, or, you know. It
felt like a big regret. And I'm sure there is still a lot of regret around not talking sooner.
Not getting more time.
But at least there was something.
Yes.
Thank God.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you with all of that. It is nice that they did get some time, and it is hard that they did kind of have to have that falling out. I don't know if that's necessarily the right term, but like you said, I can really see both sides of, like, Laura not wanting to come back and being very frozen with fear at the thought of coming back and kind of being thrown back into it, into the spotlight, into the paparazzi that even in her younger years she was never a big fan of. But I'm sure obviously since the cult hasn't been a very big fan of.
Yeah.
But then I also see Margaret's side of it where I don't think that I would come away from that not being a little bit resentful. And I know that that sounds kind of toxic and like gross, but like, you know, I'm going through a tough time and I've shown up for you. Like, it's hard not to have those thoughts, is what I'm saying, you know, of when you do things for other people. Not that it should be like, I do things for you and that means that you have to do things for me. Like, that's never why you should do stuff for other people. But I could see where Margaret would have that thought process, or where it would be difficult to not be resentful that my sister wouldn't come and help me out through a difficult time, especially when I've done that for her time and time again.
Yeah, not to mention, Margaret doesn't seem to have friends throughout her life. So
Yeah.
on top of the fact that she doesn't really have any other support system outside of her family, and that is, I feel like, such an important support to have, is your sibling. So it really just adds to the pain of it all that she won't come back for you. It is just such a complicated situation.
It's hard. It's really hard.
Everyone's kind of a victim of the circumstances because of
Yeah, it's the Ives. It's the Ives family curse.
Yeah, so it's funny how whenever Margaret said that, I feel like towards the end of the book, I was like, come on, girl. But it's like, I mean, it's pretty bad. It does touch a lot of things, so.
Well, we've talked a lot about Margaret's family and her whole situation with that. I don't know if you had any more to say about her relationship with her parents or anything like that.
I wish that her parents could have made it work. It sounds like a really tragic kind of love story there.
It really sounds like, I actually really kind of liked their love story. I know that that wasn't the romance, obviously, because our romance is between Hayden and Alice, but I did think that that was like a very good subplot romance. I was really rooting for them. Hearing her talk about like how they met and kind of how their love story started, I really wanted them to end up together.
Honestly, I feel like I really rooted for that romance more than the Margaret and Cosmo one, personally. I just felt like the build-up for their romance was so sweet, the way that it was a bit of a enemies to lovers situation.
I think that must have been why I liked it.
I think so.
I love an enemies to lovers.
But also, boy, did he show up so hard for her by going to all of her movie premieres and sending flowers for all of them. And he was just such a fan of hers. And I think that's what's so sweet about it.
Yes.
And it honestly didn't even exactly start out as a romance. He just really saw the value in her as a person and saw how talented she was and just appreciated that.
I mean, you're right. From the moment he saw her, it wasn't even, oh, she's so beautiful. It was, oh, you're a woman director. Like, wow, that's not a thing.
Yeah,
because,
you know, honestly, whenever she comes into the office, it's her and also his assistant. And it's a little confusing because they also describe the assistant, and she seems to be like a pretty beautiful woman.
Yes.
And then they describe her mom to be, you know, a little bit
not
more
the stereotypical beautiful woman of the time.
Yeah, so when you are initially introduced, it's a little unclear who exactly is the mom.
Yeah.
And the fact that this is who ends up being her mom is really cool. That it's not a situation of like, oh, she was just so beautiful and blah, blah, blah. Like, he really saw her.
He saw her, yeah.
And I loved that. And it's so sad that even literally the thing that's so crazy to me that's like, oh my God, is when Bernie's later husband dies after I can't remember his name.
Yes.
Philip or something?
Their dad?
Yes. Freddie. Frederick. He dies. And then she goes over to Frederick's grave and is like, it should have been you.
I know.
Oh,
I mean,
my God.
Really heartbreaking. And when Alice asks Margaret about it, like, oh, did you ever ask her what that meant? And Margaret was like, no, I knew. Like, I knew what that meant. She knew that they were soulmates and how she wished they could have made it last.
Yeah.
Like, that is so... my heart.
Yeah, absolutely heartbreaking. I'm glad that at the very least they really were able to maintain a good family relationship. Yes. She was always welcome over.
It is really heartwarming in some ways that they did, at the very end of it all, end up going back to what made the relationship work so well in the beginning. Was that the fact that they were friends and that they supported each other and they cared about each other and that they would talk every day about just like whatever was on their mind, and that he would always go to her premieres and like support her. Like, it's so,
Yeah.
I mean, really, like, very bittersweet, like touches your heart in a very like heartbreaking way.
I know we've been talking for a while, but it is the summer of love, and technically we haven't hit on the main romance of the book.
Of course, of course.
How did you feel about the romance in this book?
Okay, so in the beginning of the book, Emily Henry, you know, I'm expecting a romance. In the beginning of the book, it's very clear that it's going to be like a grumpy sunshine kind of romance, which I'm all here for. I know it's not everybody's favorite. And as we were getting into the book, I know you had different feelings about Hayden, but I was like, I am here for the fact that he is so not about forming a relationship with Alice, but clearly it's a romance, so they're gonna get together.
Yeah.
I was here for it.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I do really like a sort of grumpy sunshine situation.
I just like it when the ice thaws, you know, and
Yeah.
like they start to care about sunshine, and I'm like, you weren't so grumpy after all.
Yeah, it turns out that there's a heart of gold in there. I did kind of dislike Hayden at first because I was just like, please be normal.
Yeah.
It just felt a little bit too mean in the beginning. Like,
Okay.
if you just didn't say anything, I don't know.
That's fair.
I was just like, why can't you say have a nice night, basically.
Yeah.
I don't really know exactly at what point I warmed up to it, but I definitely went a complete 180 and was like, let's get these people to bone.
They need to bone.
They need a bone. It's honestly, the thing that is so crazy to me is that, you know, they make this bit of a pact, right? That they're not gonna touch each other. Hayden can't go over to her house because he's not gonna be able to help himself. And they need to wait till after this whole book situation is figured out. But then they bone anyway.
Well, I think that's when I got to the point where I was like, they just need to bone, because they would do everything but bone.
Yeah.
You might as well bone.
Yeah, plenty of oral sex happening before the boning.
Plenty of touching,
which was
plenty
nice,
of kissing.
But I wanted the full boning.
I just feel like you might as well. Like, you're already halfway there. Your clothes are already off. They're completely naked with each other and they don't bone. I mean, clearly Carly and I don't understand any of that. Like, your clothes are already off. You might as well bone.
If I'm naked already, why would I stop? In my mind, that is.
I'm naked already.
What? We're already. The unfortunate situation: I walk into a room and someone else is already naked in it. Well, we're naked. I guess this is it. Bone. The sexual tension in this book was incredibly well done.
Slow burn.
Very slow burn. Honestly, that's another trope that I really love is the slow burn, to be honest. I love the build-up. I love the tension. Yeah. I think it's so fun. I don't know. I personally kind of liked it, maybe just because it's a bit of a switch up for me. I kind of liked that in a way. There's a bit more of that sexual tension there before they sort of get to know each other more. I think there were still hints of, you know, them liking each other for who they are as well. Sure. I liked early on how Hayden said to Alice that she was the least cynical person he had ever met. And she's like, oh, so you think I'm naive? And he said, no. If I meant naive, I would have said naive. And I do think that's a really good and important distinction, because I think that really encapsulates Alice as a person. Like, she's not stupid. She isn't just ignorant to the bad stuff in the world. She just chooses to look for the best in people. Mm-hmm. And I really liked that, and I really liked that Hayden saw that. And so it really, again, what is this Hayden POV? I would love to understand exactly how early on he was falling for her.
Yes, I do, with you mentioning that, I do like the fact that he was still very true to himself, you know, with, again, touching on the grumpy sunshine aspect of it. Not that he was, like, grumpy. I think as you get to know his character and learn a little bit more about him, he's just very direct and very honest. And I like that he didn't lose that part of him. Like, he still, you know, didn't lie to Alice ever, even if there were moments where we were like, Hayden. Like, the parts where they would be making out and he would say, you know, Alice, I don't want this with you.
Yeah. That was
okay.
like, oh,
all right.
Got it.
Okay.
So you hate me.
Cool.
But you're the one who kissed me.
Great. And obviously he has his reasons for it, but it's very like interesting to see even throughout the book, even after they fall in love, you know, he doesn't lose that kind of honesty where he's very much like, this is just how I feel and think about the situation. I'm not trying to hurt your feelings. This is, you know, just me.
Yeah.
And I like that he didn't lose that aspect of like grumpy to her sunshine.
Yeah.
But I also liked on the opposite side of that, it didn't necessarily mean that he was a mean person. Because throughout the book, and kind of comparing this with her situationship with Theo, her relationship with Hayden, he is very direct, very honest. He always asks her to hang out. He never leaves it at a, oh, well, I'm free. He always says, I am free tonight. Are you free tonight? Do you want to hang out? You know what his intentions are when you're Alice.
Yeah. Truly nothing better than just someone being honest about how they feel about you
Yes.
and
Yes.
showing that they like you and want to spend time with you.
Right.
Like, what is this bullshit with Theo of, well, I'm free.
I'm free.
Hey, I happen-
I'll be in the area.
I will be in the
I'm
state of
free.
Georgia. Isn't that weird?
And then she'll be like, yeah, I'll be there too. And he just says, wow, crazy. Like, yeah, oh, okay, yeah.
Like, and? Truly, what did you expect, bro?
Yeah.
Like, and also, Alice mentions, I'm pretty sure that she's over 30, so I'm assuming that Theo is also around the same age.
Yes.
Why
We're
are we
too
playing
old to be doing that?
Yeah, we are way too old to be playing these games.
We're too old to
This
be playing
is
these games.
stupid.
But also at the same time, like, I like how very real Emily Henry made the situationship. Because, I mean, let's be honest with ourselves. We've all found ourselves in a situation, right, where we're like, oh, like, clearly this isn't the kind of relationship that I need to be in. Kind of seeing it play out with, like, Alice and Theo and being like, wow, I cannot believe that I found myself in a position where I am always asking this man to hang out and he is never making his intentions clear to me.
Yeah.
And I liked that Hayden did.
Speaking of Theo, though, whenever they were supposed to go on their date to Cecil's birthday party, and Hayden actually thought that she meant him when
Oh
she tells
my
him, like, I have a
gosh.
date tonight. And he's like, I thought. And
Oh, yeah. Oh.
poor guy.
There? Yeah.
Which makes sense. It's like, yeah, who else would you be talking about? Do you know people here?
Right. Yeah, like,
It's like-
not thinking of
The,
somebody else might be coming. Yeah.
yeah, it's like, oh no.
Oh.
But very cute. And then also beyond that, whenever Theo cancels on her and then she's upset, she like runs out leaving and Hayden chases after her. I know that not chases after in a negative way, chases after like concern for her. Clearly she's upset. Let me
yes.
check on her. I'm not gonna just let her go because she tells me like it's fine. Clearly it's not.
I also really liked the fact that Hayden told her he loved her first. And he
Yes.
was very Hayden about it, very direct, very honest, very vulnerable, and very much like, I'm in love with you. You don't have to say it. I just want you to know.
Yeah. Ah! Incredible.
Incredible.
And that's how you kind of know that this was a man written by a woman.
Yes.
But still,
Well, yeah.
love to see, and that doesn't matter to me.
no.
I would like to believe that this man could exist out in the real world,
Yes. Yeah.
and I don't care if that makes me a hopeless romantic. I like to pretend that because men should show
Men
their
take
emotions.
notes.
Men take notes.
Take notes.
Be honest. Show your emotions. Be direct.
notes.
Tell people you want them if you want them.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. I really loved them together. I think they were, obviously they are grumpy sunshine, but I just love the way that they truly appreciated each other and their perspectives. The way that they both were like, I want to live in the world, the way that you see the world.
Yeah.
That was so cute. It really turned into, at first, yes, I wanted them to bone. But
Then I wanted them to fall in
then I
love.
wanted to fall in love. I'm like, okay, you guys make a lot of sense together.
Right.
Like, it's really cute. I like that they're both tall and they both like that they're tall. Like,
Yeah. It's always interesting for me to read books where the woman is tall because I am very not tall.
no, neither of us are tall.
Yeah.
Don't want to break the veil for that, but
Yeah, right. To be perfectly candid, not that you guys can tell. Actually, I'm 5'10". But I'm so used to imagining tall, tiny relationships. So I like reading about tall relationships. And then also thinking about what must that be like?
Yeah.
Be the same height.
yeah, it's a little disturbing sometimes to think about too hard into what it's like to be short and everyone else is taller than you.
Yeah.
Like everyone can see your scalp.
Oh,
That's something that tall people never have to deal with. No one's looking at their
I
scalp.
never thought about that.
Yeah. If you got dandruff, everyone knows.
Wow.
If your hair's dirty, they might notice it more.
I never thought about that. That's so crazy.
Sorry to break that for you.
We can see their chins.
Yeah. Yeah, we can see all of
We can
this.
see all of it.
Yeah, but don't worry. We're roughly the same
We're
height.
roughly the same height. We're both 5'10".
Yeah, I've never seen the top of your head, and I don't need to.
Exactly, yeah.
That's your business. Which is also none of your business.
Should we, if you all want to subscribe to our super secret pod, which costs monies, maybe we'll show you the top of our heads.
Are you saying that we're starting an OnlyFans for the top of our heads?
But for the top of our head.
Is that a kink out there?
Like a subscription, like an Instagram subscription thing, you know, if you want to see the top of our heads.
Yeah. No spoilers.
We'll blur it out.
Yeah. Did we want to talk about the actual sex scene?
Oh, I guess we can.
Yeah.
It was hot.
It was hot. It was good. I was surprised that it was happening. Like, it almost felt like they knew it was going to happen. And I was like, wait, what?
Well,
The book's not done yet.
There was already so much tension that I was like,
It felt like we all just gave up and we're like, okay.
Exactly.
We're going to vote now.
Like, it felt very realistic to, even though they had said, like, we're gonna wait until the end of the book, like, it felt very realistic to be like, okay, let's just vote.
A month is a pretty long time to be attracted to someone and
To
not.
be attracted to someone and do everything but bone.
To literally be right on the line.
Yes.
And be like, nope. Yeah.
We're gonna stop. Like,
Yeah.
so, like, it's not that I didn't see it coming. Like, come on.
I will say, so because this is my first Emily Henry book, I didn't know that there was going to be sex because I think that was something I understood. But I was a little surprised that we only got one full, I mean, you know, the oral sex does count as sex to some degree, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess I wanted it to be full on sex, and I was surprised it was only one scene. I feel like I'm used to more in, like, my Ellie
With your-
Hazelwood books.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say with our, like, fantasy.
Fantasy too. Fantasy. I think I've just kind of all the books that I read happen to have usually more
Sure.
sex in it, and it's funny because usually I'm not someone who necessarily is like paying attention to this and caring. But again, it was such a good job of the sexual tension that I was
Yeah.
just like, please, put them in a bedroom together.
Bone.
Bone. We were gonna print off a picture and just show a bone and be like, bone, please. We'll do that next time.
Just to be clear, a picture of a bone, okay?
Not a boner.
A bone.
A bone. We're not getting monetized, but we could not risk it.
We can't get arrested.
Yeah, that too. I forget. I thought it was really a 10 out of 10 romance. I like the way it came together, personally. Well, okay, maybe 9 out of 10, because Hayden, come on. I will say, I did notice when Hayden met Alice's mom, he said, nice to meet you. And it's like, oh, so now we say it because you want to bone her daughter. Got it. Got it. Now suddenly you remember that manners are a thing and that you need to use them.
The circumstances have changed. We've all done a thing or two to get in someone's pants.
Including being nice to their parents. God, don't have to go that far.
Well, romance book or not, what a way to start the summer of love.
Agreed. And I do think our next book is going to have a little bit more romance in the mix than this
Okay.
one. So in our next book club episode, we will be covering Left of Forever. Sorry, this is not going to be the clearest of pictures. Would you like to hold it up a little closer to the
There we
screen?
go.
Yeah.
Can you see it?
We don't have a physical copy yet. We only have my digital version, but it's got two people. They're like in the woods and they're clearly horny for each other. Left of Forever by Tara DeWitt. And in case you are curious what this book is about, I have the back of the book summary here to read for you all. Wren and Ellis Bird fell in love as kids, had their son Sam when they were only teenagers, and built a life together in the coastal town of Spoons, Oregon. They were made for one another until they fell apart. Now divorced and in their 30s, Wren runs the bakery in town while Ellis works as a firefighter. They live separate lives, though they are hardly off each other's minds. When Sam gets accepted into college and the pair help him move in together, Ellis convinces Wren to take an extended road trip back to Spoons with him to see if they can give their relationship one last chance. Amid the gorgeous scenery of the California coastline, dreamy destinations, and a great deal of long yearned for proximity, Ren starts to think it just might be possible. But the two still have to contend with their tumultuous past in order to move forward. And when spoken words fail, sometimes the written word must bridge the gap. Will they make the most of what's left of forever, or will they let each other go for good?
Ooh, it does look very hot. Second chance love, beautiful California coastline.
It's kind of funny, based on the picture, I'm assuming there's some camping, and so nothing like roughing it out in the wilderness.
Oh yeah, I definitely think we'll get a little bit more romance here. This episode is going to come out Tuesday, July 29th, but not to worry, our Summer of Love will still continue on with another off-the-shelf episode where we kind of cover our underrated romances, characters, books, tropes, things like that, all of our opinions on the most underrated topics of the romance genre, and that episode will come out Tuesday, July 17th. You can always follow us on our social media accounts for an updated, full, broader view of what our episode schedule looks like as well. Thanks for listening to the latest episode of our hit podcast, Read Receipts with Carly and Sam. All of the content that you hear in the podcast is curated, recorded, and edited by us truly, with special thanks to the authors of the books that we cover and Pixabay for the music that we play. For more of our content in between shows, make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at the Read Receipts Pod. We love to see it when you guys follow along. We love to read your comments, and we love to see your likes. So please, please, please head on over to our social media and give us a follow. Until our next read. Bye.